right. Now, I'm going to go easy on you on this lesson, fairly easy. It's a scale, a very simple scale that most people who play lead guitar, this is the first scale that they learn. It's the blues scale, or the A minor pentatonic. And I'm just doing, well, I'm not going to go into that. In a blues scale proper, there's like a flat fifth, there's an extra note. I just think of it as a pentatonic scale with a passing tone. So I don't think it's a real scale. The pentatonic scale is real though, and it's at the 5th fret, and you're doing just 2 notes on each string. If you look at the top of the page on the left side, you see the where it says A minor pentatonic scale, and there's a Roman numeral 5, so we're at the 5th fret, and it's now the notes that are, the fingers that are in parentheses are the A's. You've got 3 A's. You've got the first note is an A, and then the 7th fret of the 4th string is an A, and then the 5th fret of the 1st string is an A. And that's important to know where the A's are, because we're in the key of A, and this is an A scale. So real simple scale. It's 1st and 4th fingers, 1st and 3rd, 1st and 3rd, 1st and 3rd, 1st and 4th, 1st and 4th. And that's what I would do at first. Just go from the bass to the highest note of the scale. Try to do a steady beat. Okay? A pentatonic scale is like a regular minor scale would have more notes. Like this is an A minor pentatonic, but a regular pure A minor scale would have half steps in it. Okay? And this is a simpler scale. It's called a gapped scale. The pentatonics, like there's a lot of instruments that are tuned to a pentatonic scale. And you almost don't have to have a brain to play something really nice with this scale, because it's so melodic that, I mean, you can't really, as long as you're hitting the right fingerings. I'm putting a little extra like bends, kind of teasing some of the notes. Like, you got to be careful though which notes you tease. If you tease the next note after each of the roots, that's a good safe thing. Like, or this root, this A. Just sort of pull the string a little bit. You don't have to, it can be just ever so slight. And then the first string A, and I'm actually putting 3rd and 4th fingers down and kind of squeezing the string a little bit. Those are called blue notes. You know, they're not really, we're not bending even a half step. Like, it's not even going that far. It's just, sounds almost like it would be a little out of tune, but it's not. Like, you don't want to do that though, like on the root, because then it'll start sounding a little off key, a little out of tune, unless you like that. If you really like that, and some players do, and it's more maybe psychedelic or kind of off-key sounding, you know, but like any blues player knows that you bend this one, you don't bend that one. And you could bend the the note before the root. So the note before the root is a G, and then it might be good to also know the names of these notes. It's A, C, D, E, G, and it's a pentatonic. It's a 5-note scale, and then you get the octave, and then you're in the next octave. So it's A, C, D, E, G. Just say that. A, C, D, E, G. A, C, D, E, G. And so again, might be good to say them as you play them, just so that you start getting to know the names of the notes, especially around this 5th fret area. A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G of the next octave, and then A, C. So the 3rd octave, you only have 2 notes. You could keep going, A, C, D, E, G. But then you'd have to shift out of position, and we're not going to worry about doing that right now. We're going to play everything in one fret position. Another thing you could do is, like if you want to get into a little bit more, what you got to be careful about with this scale is that you don't want to do a lot of skips unless you know what you're doing, because unless you can hear it and know what it's going to sound like. Because see, this sounds very melodic. I can play licks. But if I were skipping around, then it's not going to make much sense. So you want to kind of connect the dots. You want to go to the next higher or the next lower note. And most of it resolves back to that A. So that I usually focus on the A of the 7th fret of the 4th string and play. If you notice, most of those licks I was doing was. And if you just try different rhythms and go to the next higher or the next lower note, you can make up licks, and it's a very good thing to do. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to go to the next page, and where it says a blues solo. Excuse me. Actually, I'm going to play the rhythm chords first. And this is an 8-bar blues. So it's A7, E7, D7, D7, and then A7, E7, A7, E7. Excuse me. So I'm going to play through these. And you can try the solo, which is on the next page. Oh, gosh. It's what we call a coughing fit. Okay. That was going so well. Okay, with this lesson, compared to the last lesson in the 3rd book, I'm going to go easy on you, fairly easy. Now we're going to do the blues scale, or the A minor pentatonic scale, and I introduced that in the 2nd book. And if you remember, you're at the 5th fret, and it's you got to watch the fingerings and make sure you're not confused on. It's either 1st and 4th finger or 1st and 3rd. So it's like 1st, 4th, 1st, 3rd, 1st, 3rd, 1st, 3rd, 1st, 4th, 1st, 4th. And the fingers that have parentheses around them, on the fretboard chart, those are the tonic note A, and we're in the key of A minor. So you have an A on the first note you hit, the bass note, 5th fret of the 6th string, and then 7th fret of the 4th string. And I really like this A. I'll play around it a lot. And then the A on the 5th fret of the 1st string. That would probably be my next best choice. Usually I wouldn't start a lick on the bass note unless it's really calls for a bass riff or something. So anyway, get to know the scale up and down. Review it. And improvise with it. Like that middle A on the 7th fret of the 4th string, you can play around that. And just be careful that generally it's a good idea. This is a very melodic scale. It's almost like you don't have to have a brain, you know, to play this scale, to play nice stuff with it. Because if you know the notes of the scale, you just play almost anything and it sounds really cool, you know. But you want to do what we call scalewise motion to be safe when you're first working on improvising, and it'll sound good no matter what you do. So what I mean by scalewise motion, if I start on that A, I'll go to the next note above it or go to the note right below it. But I won't skip around a lot. Like I won't skip to the 2nd string and then do the 3rd string and then. You know, if you do a lot of skips, it's not going to make sense. Maybe you like that kind of thing, but usually it's not going to work too well if you're trying to play a solo. So we do, you know, kind of a connect the dots. So you can keep going up, but go to the next note of the scale. And then you can go down. It's okay to repeat notes. You know, a lot of beginner lead guitar players tend to think it's a sin to repeat a note, but repeat notes and to go either up or down, you know. But think of the A as sort of your home note, you know. You can circle around that. Okay, now in the 12-bar blues we've got 3 chords in the key of A7. In this one, it goes to E7 on the 2nd measure. It's like the song Key to the Highway. Big Bill Brunzi first recorded that, and then Little Walter, and then Eric Clapton, Freddie King. A lot of people have done Key to the Highway. It's a great song, you know. So it's A. I'll go through the chord changes. It's A7, E7, and then D7 twice. D7 again, and then A7, E7, A7, E7. Now put an extra A7 if you were ending the song, you would end it on A7. So now in the pentatonic scale, I talked about the A's. You've got 3 A's. Sorry. Now, if you think of the D chord, and if you move this A across the street, same fret, that's going to be D. And then this 7th fret A, move it across the street, and that's a D. So you have a D on the 5th fret of the 5th string, and then a D on the 7th fret of the 3rd string. So the two A's, the first two A's, 5th fret, 7th fret, move those across the street and you've got D, D. Now the E7 chord, think about, what's the distance from D to E? Now if you're doing this D and then this E, and I should mention, well, I'll mention that later. I don't want to get off on something while we're talking about this. So we did the two A's or three A's and then the two D's. So E is going to be the very next note up from D, and then now you could have an E up here, but that's not in this pattern that we're playing. So the E is going to be the 5th fret of the 2nd string. So it's 7th fret of the 5th string, and the higher E is the 5th fret of the 2nd string. So again, we've got three A's, two D's, and then two E's. And the point of all this is that you want to get familiar with those root notes of the three chords, A, the D's, and the E's, so that you can play around those. When you know that it's on an E chord, you can play a lick that starts on an E. Okay? If it's on an A chord, let me start there. A, then I can do a lick that begins and ends on an A. It doesn't really have to begin on the A, but ending on the A is probably more important. Though it's a good exercise to get to know those notes. Strum the chord, A7, and then that forces you to switch positions, go up to that 7th fret A. And it can be something as simple as what I just played. I played like that. How many times did I hit this A? Quite a bit, And then the next chord is E7. And I can go to this E. And I can do the same lick that I did on A with the same fret pattern. Or I could go to this E. I'll strum it again. And then the next chord is D7. And of the two Ds, I'd probably pick the higher pitched one. So I started on the D, played the notes around it, scalewise motion, and then you have another D7. So you're staying, that's the only chord that's repeated 2 times in a row. And then we're back to A7. I'm going to do the high one this time. And then E7. I've forgotten the song. And then back to A7. E7. That time I began on this E and ended on the low E. So that it helps you, when you strum the chord and then do a short phrase that begins and ends on that root. A couple of things. It helps you to learn where the roots are of those chords, and it helps you to learn what we call phrasing. And you don't want to be the kind of guitar player that just keeps rambling all the time and just with no punctuation. In music, you have phrases, just like in grammar and speech, the way I'm talking now. I don't just continue talking with no break and no breath or anything. I do short phrases, and sentences with periods and exclamation points. And the same in music, we have phrasing. So, okay, so you can have little interruptions and just the way I'm talking. You know, I mean, we don't think about it when we talk, but you know, you'd have to be a robot to talk. You know, and you've heard that on videos. Well, he went to the store and he got a loaf of bread. You know, with no break in the voice, and you don't want to be that kind of guitar player. Okay, when you think of like B.B. King, he's like. He played around the root quite a bit if he were in the key of A, but he would play the A on the second string. See? But with a lot of space between each statement. It's like he's making a statement. It's like having a conversation. We're talking. We're making a statement. All right. So now, what I'm going to do is, well, we'll go on to the next page, which says blues solo, and it's an example of an 8-bar solo. That's what it says, and we're doing the same pentatonic scale, but I've got it all measured out and written out in tablature with shuffle and triplet rhythms. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here's another way you can practice this is strum the chord again and then play the like the chord names are above each measure, A7, and then make sure you count the rhythms: 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Be careful in that. Triplets are fairly easy to spot because you have 3/8 notes, you know. But a shuffle beat, you'll have a quarter note followed by an eighth note. And the first beat here is a quarter followed by an eighth. 1, 2, 3. And then 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. That last note of the first measure is a dotted quarter note, and it's going to ring for all 3 counts of that triplet beat. Okay, so it's like 4, 2, 3. If it has a dot next to it, it rings for 3 counts. If it's a quarter note without a dot, it rings for 2 counts. So be really careful about that because you get used to doing the shuffle beats, and then when you have a dotted quarter, you might only hold it for 2 counts instead of 3, and that kind of throws a wrench into the rhythm. You're leaving out an eighth note count, so you don't want to do that. Every measure has 12 eighth note counts, and so what I would do is strum the A chord, A7, and and then play that phrase. And then strum the E, and you might want to do it 3 or 4 times. I'm just going to go on to the E7, strum it, and then I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Now I went ahead to the downbeat of the D7 because that's the way the phrase ends. It's a smooth transition from E7 to D7. So it sounds a little incomplete if you don't resolve it to the first beat of the D7. Like if I played it like this. It sounds like a sentence that didn't quite finish. So I'll do this instead. And this is what we call an overlapping phrase. So it's the end of that E phrase, but it's also the beginning of the D phrase. So I'll hit the D chord, and I'll start on that same note I ended the E phrase with. And it's a dotted quarter, so make sure you hold it 3 counts. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. And then I would hit the downbeat of the next D. Again, there are overlapping phrases. So you have a phrase from here to here, and the last note is also the first note of the next phrase. And then that last note is the first note of the next phrase. So they kind of connect to each other. Okay? So let me start over again, and I'll quit talking and just play it the way I would have you practice it. And again, I'm not going to repeat each phrase 3 or 4 times, but if you feel like you need to, when you practice it on your own, that's a really good way to really get to know each phrase. And then eventually you want to be able to play through the whole page with have it be seamless, you know, okay? So strum the A7. Start on that same 7th fret. 2, 3, 2, 2. Back to A7. Play that same note again. 2, 3, 2, 2. Now we're going to strum the E7. And start on the same note you ended the A phrase. And then strum the A7. Start on the same note you ended the last phrase. Strum the E7. Last note of the last phrase. And then the final chord, A7. Start on that last note again. 2, 3. Okay? Now, let me play it one more time without the strums interrupting the phrases. 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. here's an example of an 8-bar blues solo, and we're not improvising, we're writing what's written out, but with the idea that you want it to give you some ideas to where you can make up your own licks and improvise. So I encourage that, you know, but it's also good to imitate other people's licks to kind of learn the language a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is go through the chord strumming so that you can play along with me. You play the solo while I play the chords, okay? So I'm going to go at that slower, kind of easy, you know, relaxed speed. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Ending chord is just A7, where, okay, then you know, you can get a good idea of phrasing and how phrases connect. In this one we're sustaining the notes, but the long notes at the end of the phrases are generally the periods, they're the punctuation. Another thing to, you know, we talked about the roots of the 3 chords, the 3 A's, 2 D's, 2 E's. I would learn all the notes of the scale. I'll go over it with you. It's A, C. Remember, before I do this, it's a pentatonic scale. So it's a 5-note scale. A, C, D, E, G, and then the next octave is A, C, D, E, G. So if you just follow the scale from the lowest note, that's the order of the notes. A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, A, C. So there is a little bit of a third octave, just 2 notes, A and C. So it's really a little more than 2 octaves. But think of, you know, like maybe just do each octave separately. You could go from A to A, like A, C, D, E, G, A. A, C, D, E, G, A. And then say it without playing them. A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, A. And then associate A with this note, or C with this note, and D with this note, so that you get to know the notes on the guitar a little bit. And you know, it's not like when I'm doing a solo, I'm thinking E, A, C, A, G, A. That would slow you down quite a bit. But if somebody stopped me and said, "What is that note?" I'd say G. You know, I know it's a G. You know, you have to know the notes, though you're not always thinking about them. You know, like when I talk, I'm not thinking, "Oh, the word talk, that's T-A-L-K." You know, I'm not thinking about that. You know, but I could if somebody stopped me and said, "How do you spell talk?" You know, but it's, you could say, "Well, I don't need to do that," and you don't. You know, but I think any artist in their guitar, if they go beyond just wanting to learn a few songs, then you become more like an artist. And you should know your instrument, know your materials, just like a painter knows colors. They know how to mix colors to get other colors. And same with, you know, so that's a pentatonic scale. And what if I'm doing the Dorian mode, or the regular minor? And see, that's a different sound than just the pentatonic. The pentatonic is more of a basic blues. Like Albert King, his whole career was pretty much pentatonic licks, though on the turnarounds of the blues, that's where he would really surprise you, you know, because he would do, I mean, different things. He wasn't just cut and dried pentatonic scales, but you can almost say he made his career out of this scale. Those are like Albert King type licks. And then, you know, a different guitarist like Guitar Slim, he would play more like a major pentatonic lick. You know, which I don't want to get into the major pentatonic right now, but there are major pentatonics and minor pentatonics. And those are 5-note scales. The regular do, re, mi type scales are 7-note scales. We call them diatonic scales. See, like in The Sound of Music, I'm playing the key of A. Eventually, you want to have a whole vocabulary of scales, and they all have different colors. You know, like if you're B.B. King, you pretty much stick with the pentatonic. If you're Santana, you would do the pure minor scale a lot. Santana knows his pentatonics too, but it all depends on what you're playing, and the more you know about a little, you know, that's where music theory is very useful. It doesn't make you more creative, but you learn about the nuts and bolts of how tones work together in both scales and harmony, you know. Understanding harmony and how really actually chords are derived from scales. So I don't want to get into all of that right now, but that's for another lesson. But enjoy this, the blues scale. We're going in a little more in depth here, and just doing really an 8-bar blues instead of a 12-bar blues, which is kind of cool. If you haven't heard the song Key to the Highway, I would suggest first listening to Little Walter's version, and just look it up on YouTube. Key to the Highway, Little Walter. It'll spell it out for you. And he was a harmonica player, probably one of the best that ever lived. And his version is great. And then Freddie King's version is more like a straight rhythm, like a... more like a 1 and 2 and 3 and, rather than 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. I think Little Walters is in the key of G. It's like I got the key. my way. I'm booked and I'm bound to go. That's more of a shuffle beat. It's probably a little faster than that. But a great song, you know, so get to know. I mean, there are some blues classics that if you love the blues, if you really want to play the blues, you want to get to know some of the blues songs that are what I'd call standards. And some of them are not so common to hear, but like there's a song called Just a Little Bit that has this riff. Well, I don't want much. I just want a little bit. You know, it's a cool song, and if you're with a real blues band, they might go right into that song, and if you don't know it, then you might be stumbling around a little bit. But oh yeah, it's just a little bit. You know, I know that one. You know, it's Roscoe Gordon, Just a Little Bit. Real distinctive riff in that one. And Roscoe Gordon was a piano player, but he wrote the song. So just a little bit of thought, food for thought, as they say. So enjoy this and hit like if you like what I'm doing, and subscribe, please. I need more subscribers all the time. And go to my Facebook page and like my John Hedger Guitar Studio Facebook page. I want people to like me, okay? So we'll see you in the next one. All right.